Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
It's me, Egbert, once again. I'm the new owner of this station. I went out and hired the best talk radio consultant, Jeff Allen from News Talk STL, and told him to hire the worst talent he could find. Jeff did exactly as I told him. Ladies and gentlemen, here are Brad and John.
Well, John, does that make us the worst talent? I'm a little still confused by that little bump there. Is that?
Here's what it does. To me, it gives us license to break all the rules. And we know that Egbert doesn't get up early, so he doesn't ever hear this live. So at least we can't be reprimanded in real time, you know?
He's one of those nocturnal genius guys that goes to bed at like 4 o'clock in the morning and doesn't wake up till like 2 in the afternoon, right?
And we're the opposite, aren't we, Brad?
Yes. Early to bed, early to rise. What's the rest of that? Makes man wealthy,
Makes
healthy.
A guy own 3 radio stations. That's what I heard.
And lose his ass. But did I say that? Anyway, it's bj.show. I have to say that very slowly because I keep screwing it up. Did I get it right, John?
No, it's bjshow.co.
Oh my God. God.
It's going to be a great Friday, Brad. We're going into what you and I do not celebrate as a long weekend because we don't take superfluous holidays off. No matter if kids are off school or if the state says it's a holiday, whatever. Do you know who made Martin Luther King Jr. a state holiday in Missouri?
Well, hold on. I have to back you up for a minute because of the fact that you made the comment on the air yesterday, and a listener who I didn't know was a listener, who is a teacher in the Hazelwood School District, said, nope, he's not right. We have a full day today, and we have school tomorrow. I looked it
up. They're right. I'm sorry to interrupt, but you're right. I did look it up, and Hazelwood is in school today.
Yes, and because you said all the school teachers in the St. Louis County area had a half day on Thursday, a day off on Friday today, and then which meant they would essentially have like a 4.5 day off because of the Thursday half day, Friday off, Saturday, Sunday off, Monday, ML King holiday off. Man, and the crazy thing about that is if those schools that do that will not have a full week of school until the 4th week of January. Because
well, Brad, first of all, you're right. Second of all, thank you to the listener for fact checking us. We're not so arrogant as to think that we don't get things wrong, because we do. And third of all, what most people know, including your friend who's a teacher in Hazelwood, originally Hazelwood was going to have Friday off. And then bjshow.co went on the air, and they found out that we were both products of the Hazelwood School District. And they said, look, kids need every day in school as possible.
Wow. And also I had a conversation with this person who shall remain nameless because they didn't want to identify themselves because of the fact that what they told me was pretty interesting. Okay. Did you go to Kirby Junior High?
I did.
Okay.
I'm a Kirby Cougar.
Okay. God, when I went there, where they called them the K-Hawks, whatever a K-Hawk was.
Well, there were still pterodactyls around when you were in junior high, Brad. I think you guys were the pterodactyls.
Okay. Kirby Junior High was renamed East Middle School, okay?
Correct.
And I say it was closed. And this particular person, once again, who is an employee of the Hazelwood School District, who has to remain anonymous, told me more than probably I wanted, or more than I should have known, but a lot of interesting stuff, that I was correct in that they moved all the kids over to Hazelwood East. They shut down the old Kirby, now renamed Hazelwood East Middle School. And for a couple of years, it was not used. Now what they've done is they've done this crazy thing where at the Hazelwood East High School, it's now a 5-year high school where they have 8, 9,
really?
10, 11, and 12. Yes, but they have the 8th graders like in what they call the 8th grade center, okay? And what's weird about this is some of the other middle schools are 6 and 7, and some of the other middle schools are 6, 7, and 8. So it depends upon which middle school. And the crazy thing about this is that if you were like, let's say you were in that area and the boundary lines, let's say you went to my old school, Twillman School, you went to Twillman School for grades 1 through 5 or kindergarten for 5, then you would go to a middle school for 6 and 7, and then you would go to essentially to the high school for 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, but you would be like sort of cordoned off in a particular area of the high school. Now, the old Kirby Junior High, / Hazelwood East Middle School is now the bad kids' high school.
I see. The kids who, or you could say, Brad, the kids who need a little bit more support and help.
Yes.
You know how Johnny Diversity is over here to point out that we should be a little bit more empathetic.
I forgot you're a former comms guy. I say the bad kids high school. You call it, what did you call it again?
The kids that need a little bit more help. And by the way, Brad, this is a fantastic intro into a story that did not make the top cut today. But I will say, before you give me the official intro, the Bell Fountain Habilitation Home has been, the state is adding another property onto the Bell Fountain Habilitation Home right there at the beautiful corner of 270 and Bell Fountain for kids who need a little bit more help, for troubled youth.
Do you know my mom used to work there?
What's that?
She worked at that place at the Bell Fountain. Whatever.
Oh, sorry, I missed the last half. I do remember that she worked there. You're right.
She was a speech and hearing therapist, and she worked there, and it is a huge campus. It's just it's monstrous.
Property there is so. I mean, how many Busch stadiums could you put in there?
I'm telling you. I mean, it's got to be, and I maybe I'm exaggerating. It's got to be 100 acres.
It's at least 100. Yeah, it's absolutely 100 acres. If folks don't know, if you're coming across the bridge from Illinois in 270 and you don't want to spend some time right off Bell Fountain Road at me and Brad's old stomping grounds, if you bust a left and you go south on Bell Fountain Road, there's a Bell Fountain Habilitation Center that's been there for, since the 50s, Brad?
Yeah, and they used to own property on the other side of 367, that would be on the west side of 367.
No way. Okay, I didn't know that.
And when my mom worked there was a husband and wife couple who were both MDs, I believe, either both MDs or both PhDs, because they were called doctor. They were both called doctor, which is
like a Joe Biden doctor.
Yeah,
Joe Biden, not like a real doctor, but like an academic.
Well,
doctor.
Let's say Joe Biden had a PhD, and it would be like Doctor and Dr. Biden. Okay, if they were together, it wouldn't be like Mr. and Mrs. It would be Doctor and Dr. Biden. Okay, on 367. Which is the western boundary of that habilitation center. So in other words, you go from essentially from Bell Fountain Road all the way to 367 was all the property for that state school, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
There used to be a big monstrous mansion on the west side of that property that had an entrance off of Lewis and Clark 367. That's where the directors lived, the couple.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
wow. Well, that's convenient. That cuts down on your carbon emissions.
Right. And they got...
Now, Brad, hold on. I hate to interrupt
carbon
here.
Emissions.
But while we're talking about bad boys, I was unable this morning to limit the top stories to 3. So we're going to have to tick through 5, Brad. I've been singing R. Kelly all morning. He had that song that goes, takes 5 stories just to make me feel resigned.
John,
that's Fiesta remix.
You are always interesting in that, like, this whitey white bread guy used to work for Monsanto, who's the comms guy, but yet rap like backwards and forwards.
Whitey white bread is good. Whitey white bread is good. And did you know the popular R. Kelly song Fiesta? It's called Fiesta Remix. R. Kelly came out years later and pointed out there's no original Fiesta. He went straight to Fiesta Remix. Now, nobody asks R. Kelly's opinion anymore because he got in trouble when he was famously into water sports and things. But
he's in jail.
Anyway,
he's in jail now, isn't he?
Should we roll into the top 5, Brad?
Oh, no, he's in jail now, isn't he?
I believe he is, yeah.
And wasn't his song the one that we used to play all the time? Wasn't Ignition? That was one of his songs?
Yeah, Ignition was a fantastic song. That was late 2000, early 2001.
Do you know, I used to play that on KSLQ, and one day a lady called me up and she says, I can't believe you still play that song. And
because of the trouble that he got into?
A and B didn't quite mesh in my head at that time. And I go, what's wrong with that song? I go, there's no, right.
He does say, I'm going to take my key and stick it in your ignition, but you got to kind of.
What's wrong with that? But that was back in the day when you did that with every car. Now
every car had a real key.
Yeah, he didn't say anything about a fob. What he was going to do with your fob, right? I mean,
he didn't say anything about that. And one more lyric before we go, Brad. Speaking of a lyric that you would appreciate, the great rapper Andre 3000 once had a song when he was talking about the good old days, and he said, "When cars were made of metal instead of plastic," and I don't think I've heard a rap song about cars that really hit me there. Like it takes me back to the old Cutlass driving down Bell Fountain in 270, you know?
See, you and I are a better day. I mean, matter of fact, my 62 Pontiac had a metal dashboard. And if, Matt, that's part of the whole thing with the Ralph Nader thing. If your head would impact that dashboard, you would have a nasty mark on your head. If you had a head left, it might, I won't go there.
It explains a lot about Brad.
Yeah, well, there's a story that at the time when I was a young guy and I was have certain women I was dating at the time. Ooh. I had a 62 Pontiac station wagon, okay, and this was the 70s. And I actually had a father come out to inspect my car, and he was most impressed because I had bucket seats, first off, and think about that for a minute. So my girlfriend, or whoever she was, couldn't sit next to me, and how you had to scoot over on the bench seat. I had bucket seats in the car. I had put the bucket seats in. The car originally had a bench seat. And I had not, because in 1962, there were no seat belts. I had actually put seat belts in and shoulder harnesses.
Boy, you know what? Safety is number one when you're riding with Brad Hildebrand.
Right. And when this gal's father came out to inspect my car, he was blown away by the fact that, because at that point in time, unless you had a brand new car, I don't even think back in the early 70s, I don't think the cars, even the new cars, had shoulder harnesses at that point in time. I don't think they did. They may have. I don't know. I can't remember. But I was like way ahead of my times. And I remember him looking at me going like, man, you've got safety. He said something about safety, and I'm going like,
safety on the brain.
Yeah,
that's right.
And see now, here's the difference is that if I would have had the John Combest brain back then, and I would have been able to respond to him politically correct, I would look him in the eye and say, sir, when I have your daughter in my car, her safety is the utmost utmost importance to my life. That's why I have these custom bucket seats where she has to stay in her seat. She can't scoot over on a bench seat next to me. She has to wear her lap belt and her shoulder belt, sir. And matter of fact, what you don't realize, in the back of the car, there are 2 crash helmets. The one we drive in my car, we put on the crash helmets. So, sir, your daughter's safety is my utmost importance.
And then you peeled out and you took her to Steak and Shake. And you said, baby, I can get you a free milkshake here.
Right.
You said Brad's milkshake brings all the girls to the yard.
And then I said, watch me peg the speedometer. Okay, the top 3, which is now the top 5. Every day John puts together this list, and sometimes the list gets a little bit engorged, shall we say? Is that a good word?
So first of all, Brad, you're talking about here's how we should encapsulate the first segment. Metal headroom engorged. There we go. You think we can do a story a minute here? Let's tick through these real quick.
Okay,
Brad.
go ahead.
And by the way, everybody can find.
I'll shut up.
General setup.
Well, here,
you can find these all today at johncombest.com.
That's what I was just going to say. Got to put plug in for your website. COM.
Thank you, Brad.
Matter of fact, it's interesting. The other day, I gave your web address to a guy that I was talking to on the phone, talking about, hey man, you got to check this out. And he goes, John who? And I go, Com. Just think of Com, COM, and Best. And I spelled it for him. JOHNCBEST. I can't even spell it. JohnCombest.com. Okay, thanks. So,
thank you for that, Brad. I appreciate that. And I appreciate everybody that spreads the word about the show, too, and the website. The number 5 story today, it's a banger. The great embattled Democrat rep, Sarah Unsicker. Oh, you thought her legislative career was over? No. Speaker of the House, Dean Plocher, has appointed her to be a member of a special accountability panel, the Special Committee on Government Accountability. You say, John, it's just another legislative committee. Who cares? I'm going to point out the gem in the story. A reporter came to Speaker Dean Plocher, who's faced his own challenges in the last couple months, and asked him, why are you appointing her? What's going on? I don't understand. And Dean Plocher told the reporter, quote, keep wondering, unquote. And then the best quote is he said to the reporter as he's heading down the Capitol stairs to a committee room, hey, listen, I don't have time for you. Appreciate it. And moved on. Now, Brad,
hold it. Was that Governor Greitens? Remember how Governor Greitens was like that as well,
now,
too.
Now listen, hey, let's not put Dean and Eric in the same boat there.
Do you know he was a Navy SEAL?
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's breaking. Somebody should tweet that.
Yeah.
Now, I was torn in this lieutenant governor's race because, I got a lot of love for Bob Onder. Everybody loves Holly Rader. I think I got to vote for Dean now. Like, if you tell a reporter that you don't have time for him and just brush him off,
that's right.
I don't know. There's something about that.
Right. He's the man.
Number 4 story, the great Austin Peterson, who hosts the Wake Up America show, which you can watch on Rumble, you can watch it on YouTube, had a state representative named Brian Seitz from Branson on yesterday. Seitz ticked through a whole number of controversial issues, not just why he supports Jay Ashcroft in the governor's race, but also whether or not gay people should be allowed to adopt kids. And the kicker and the teaser, Brad, why do some liberal women like ACO and Kamala Harris love white men? And not only do they love white men, what is it about some liberal women that requires them to seek out a man that will put them in their place? Brian Seitz explains. That's the number 4 story.
That should be interesting. Okay, number 3.
Number 3 story is sports betting could be on the way. Gambling companies have formed a pact starting yesterday to begin gathering signatures to get sports betting on the ballot. Now, humble brag alert. One of the companies is DraftKings, which is one of my favorite publicly traded companies. I've never bet on sports a day in my life. I'm a big proponent of DraftKings, though. I think they're the leader in that industry. So I choose to profit off them via my retirement account, but not gamble. So anyway, folks, you pull into a Wally's world, as Brad calls it. Folks are going to be haranguing you to get your signature to put sports betting on the ballot.
I don't think they can do that at Wally World, because where I always encounter the petition gatherers is at places owned by the government, like, for example, the post office and things like that, because that's public property. I believe they get kicked off of the Walmart property.
I've seen them there, Brad.
Have you
seen
really?
them at the one at St. Charles.
Interesting.
I've accosted them, and my general lie is no thanks, or I tell them that I'm not a Missouri voter.
Oh, I always sign, but I use a pseudonym and I put down a fake address.
Of course you do.
Right.
Now, real quick, the top 2 stories. Number 2, Travis Fitzwater, who represents a Senate district in mid-Missouri, announced yesterday on 93.9 The Eagle, our friend Stephanie Bell's station, that he is seriously considering running in the 3rd Congressional District. As we know, Senator Mary Elizabeth Coleman from Arnold has already announced that she is campaigning. And if you listen to the interview, I have the exact timestamp at johncombest.com today. You can hear Senator Fitzwater all but say that he's running. He talks about how important it is to have someone from mid-Missouri continue the Lutkemeyer legacy, so to speak.
And isn't he the first guy that actually lives in the district?
Yeah, I mean, Mary Elizabeth is right outside of the district boundaries. That's fair.
Right. Okay.
That's fair to say. And real quick, the number 1 story, Will Scharf, who is a candidate for Missouri Attorney General, was on 97.1 FN, the Annie Fry show, and he had an incredible anecdote. He talks a lot about the Trump cases. He is a lawyer on Donald Trump's legal team. So he goes through the cases, in D.C. and Georgia, et cetera. But most importantly, Brad, he talks about how he even got hooked up with Donald Trump. Do we have time for it now, or should we wait?
No, let's carry that over, because I've heard him before. He's an interesting guy, and
yeah,
he has some when you hear him lay out his case, so to speak, it's to the point where it's like, man, this guy's got it going on, because
no doubt about it.
He makes a tremendous amount of success, especially, and let's talk about this, especially in light of what's going on down to Georgia with the stuff that's come out about, what's her name? I call her Fannie, but everybody calls her Fani. It's spelled Fanni.
I think it's Fannie.
Well, but I've heard
it's Fannie Mae. It's a government program that's
like
bloated and
Kamala and Kamala. It's like if we're over time, but let me just end with one thing. If Kamala Harris was really smart, she would say her name is Kamala Harris. Get what I'm doing there?
I don't. You might have to explain that to me.
Taking a common name and putting her own spin on it.
Oh, I get it.
The idea being is, it's not Kamala Harris.
And then you force people to repeat your name,
right.
Which under the Brad
right.
Hildebrand mantra, you got to repeat something, 4 times to remember?
3 times. And then when someone calls her Kamala Harris, she goes, no, my name's not Kamala Harris. It's Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris. It's very elegant. I like that, Brad. Are you on her payroll?
Yeah, see, these people should pay me for, because that way she can make fun of anybody, well, isn't it Harris? No, it's Harris. Okay, ma'am, it's Harris. Okay, we have to take a break. We're way over time. It's all John's fault.
It is.
It's because he had 5 instead of 3 this morning.